The diamond ring felt like a loaded gun in my pocket as I watched my wife Hannah laugh at something on her phone. Again. For the third time in 10 minutes, that same musical giggle she used to save for me echoed through our kitchen while she typed furiously with manicured fingers. "Who's so funny at 7 a.m, I asked, pouring coffee into my fire department mug. Hannah's thumb moved lightning quick across the screen before she flipped the phone face down. Just Kim being Kim. You know how she gets. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I knew how Kim got, all right? I also knew Kim was in Florida visiting her mother this week, which made Hannah's explanation about as believable as a fireproof match. But I kept my mouth shut and headed for the door, the ring box burning a hole in my jacket pocket like a guilty secret. 24 years I'd been fighting fires in this town. 24 years of running into burning buildings while other people ran out. You develop instincts about when something's about to blow up in your face. Right now, every alarm in my head was screaming. "Michael Turner, you're one paranoid bastard," I muttered, climbing into my pickup. But paranoid bastards tend to live longer than trusting fools, especially in my line of work. The fire station buzzed with its usual morning chaos. Eddie Kowalski, my partner for the last 8 years, looked up from his newspaper with a grin that could sell toothpaste. "Morning, sunshine. You look like someone pissed in your cornflakes." "Hannah's acting weird," I said, hanging my jacket carefully in my locker. The ring box made a soft thud against the metal. "Weird how? Like rearranging the spice rack weird, or hiding bodies in the basement weird?" Phone calls, late nights, laughing at texts from people who aren't even in town. Eddie folded his paper with the precision of a man who'd spent 20 years in the Army before joining the department. "Mike, you've been married 15 years. Maybe she's planning a surprise party. Maybe she's buying you something embarrassing from one of those late-night shopping channels. Maybe she's having an affair with the mailman." The last suggestion hit like a slap, even delivered in Eddie's trademark flat tone. "Thanks for the pep talk, Dr. Phil." "Hey, I'm just saying. Women are mysterious creatures. Could be anything." Could be anything. Right. That's what I kept telling myself as we rolled out on 3 calls that morning. A kitchen fire on Elm Street where a 70-year-old woman had fallen asleep making bacon. A false alarm at the elementary school that turned out to be burnt toast in the teacher's lounge. A fender bender on Route 9 where some teenager had rear-ended a soccer mom while texting. All routine, all normal, all completely unlike the sick feeling growing in my gut every time I thought about Hannah's secretive smile. The ring had cost me 2 months' overtime pay. A full carat, princess cut, set in white gold because Hannah always said yellow gold made her look washed out. I'd been planning to give it to her tonight at dinner, our 15th anniversary. 15 years of marriage, 17 years together total, high school sweethearts who'd made it work through my fire academy training, her struggling design business, 2 miscarriages, and my father's long, ugly passing from lung cancer. We were supposed to be the couple that made it, the ones who proved love could survive anything. "Earth to Turner," Eddie called from the passenger seat as we headed back to the station. "You're driving like my grandmother, and she's been gone for 10 years. I pressed the accelerator and tried to focus on the road instead of the growing certainty that my marriage was circling the drain. But when we pulled into the station parking lot, I saw Tyler Morrison's silver BMW parked across the street, and every instinct I'd developed in 2 decades of emergency response started screaming on Tyler Morrison, Hannah's college boyfriend, the one who dumped her senior year to chase some blonde sorority girl to California, the one who'd supposedly moved back to town 6 months ago to start a consulting business, the one Hannah had mentioned exactly once, in passing, like he was just another face from the past, instead of the guy who'd broken her heart so badly she'd cried for 3 straight weeks. "That's Tyler Morrison's car," I said, pointing across the street. Eddie squinted through the windshield. "The tech guy? Yeah, I've seen him around. Drives like he's compensating for something, if you ask me. He dated Hannah in college. So? I dated half the cheerleading squad in high school. Doesn't mean I'm planning a reunion tour." But Eddie's voice had lost its casual tone, and I could see him studying my face with the same intensity he used to read smoke patterns at a fire scene. "Mike, you don't seriously think... I don't know what to think." That was the truth. I didn't know anything for certain, just had a collection of small, nagging details that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture I didn't want to see. Hannah's new workout schedule that had her leaving the house at odd hours. The way she'd started dressing nicer for trips to the grocery store. The credit card bill showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to. On dates when she'd claimed to be homesick with a headache. The ring box felt heavier in my pocket as I walked into the station. Chief Marquez was waiting with a stack of paperwork and a scowl that could strip paint. "Turner, I need these incident reports finished by end of shift. And try to spell extinguisher correctly this time." I spent the next 4 hours drowning in bureaucracy, but my mind kept wandering to Hannah and Tyler and all the ways a marriage could burn down without anyone noticing the smoke until it was too late. By the time my shift ended, I'd convinced myself I was being ridiculous, paranoid, the kind of jealous husband who checks his wife's phone and follows her to yoga class. Then I got home and found Hannah in the shower at 4:30 in the afternoon, singing off-key and using the expensive shampoo she usually saved for special occasions. "You're home early," she called through the bathroom door, and I could hear something in her voice. Surprise? Guilt? Or maybe just the distortion of water and tile in my own suspicious imagination. "Slow day," I called back, settling into my recliner with a beer and the remote, but I wasn't really watching television. I was listening to Hannah hum in the shower and wondering when she'd started taking 2 showers a day. She emerged 20 minutes later in a cloud of vanilla-scented steam, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for Christmas, the one that hugged her curves and made her eyes look like sapphires, the one she'd worn exactly twice in the past 6 months. "Going somewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Dinner with the girls. I told you this morning, remember? Kim's back from Florida and wants to celebrate her mom's birthday." Kim, who'd supposedly been texting funny messages at 7 a.m. despite being in a different time zone. Kim, whose mother's birthday was in March, not October. Kim, who Hannah had just claimed was back from Florida even though her Facebook page showed pictures from Miami Beach posted 2 hours ago. The lies were piling up like kindling, and I could smell smoke. "Have fun," I said, raising my beer in a mock toast. "Tell Kim I said happy birthday to her mom." Hannah's smile flickered for just a moment, like a candle in a draft. "I will. Don't wait up. You know how we get when we start talking." I knew Hannah was lying through her perfect white teeth. I knew she was meeting Tyler Morrison instead of her girlfriends, and I knew the diamond ring in my jacket pocket was about to become the most expensive mistake I'd ever made. But I also knew something Hannah didn't. I knew how to track a fire to its source, I knew how to follow smoke to flame, and I knew that before this was over, someone was going to get burned. After Hannah left in a cloud of perfume and deception, I sat in my recliner for exactly 10 minutes, finishing my beer and staring at the wall where our wedding picture hung. We looked so young in that photo, so happy and stupid and convinced we'd figured out something the rest of the world had missed. Then I got up, grabbed my keys, and followed my wife to her date with another man. Hannah's white Honda was easy to follow through downtown traffic. She drove carefully, stopping completely at stop signs and using her turn signals like she was taking her driver's test. Guilty conscience, maybe, or maybe she was just being extra careful not to get pulled over while heading to meet her lover. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Lover. My wife had a lover. She parked outside Santino's, the Italian place on 5th Street where we'd had our first official date 17 years ago. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't felt like swallowing broken glass. I pulled into the lot across the street and watched Hannah check her lipstick in the rearview mirror before walking into the restaurant. She moved differently now, with a bounce in her step I hadn't seen in years, like she was walking towards something instead of away from it. Tyler's BMW was already in the lot. Of course it was. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, engine off, watching couples walk in and out of the restaurant where my wife was having dinner with another man. Part of me wanted to march inside and confront them, make a scene, flip tables and throw punches like some jealous caveman protecting his territory. But I'd learned patience in my line of work. Fires that looked contained could explode without warning if you rushed in unprepared. Better to study the situation, understand what you were dealing with before you made your move. My phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. "Having so much fun with the girls. Kim says hi, don't wait up. XOXO. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She was sitting 20 yards from me, probably holding hands with Tyler Morrison across a candlelit table, and she had the balls to send me kissy face emojis. I texted back, "Glad you're having fun. Tell Kim happy birthday from me." The response came back immediately. "Will do. Love you. Love you. Right. The way a spider loves a fly." I started the truck and drove home, my hands shaking with rage and something else, something that felt like relief. Because now I knew for certain. Now I had facts instead of suspicions. Hannah was cheating, and Tyler Morrison was the other man, and my marriage was over whether I wanted to admit it or not. The house felt different when I walked through the front door. Emptier, like Hannah had already moved out and taken all the warmth with her. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the ring box I'd placed in the center like a centerpiece. 15 years of marriage, 17 years together. Reduced to a diamond ring I'd never give and a lie I'd never believe. My phone rang at 11:30. Hannah, calling from the restaurant parking lot if the background noise was any indication. "Hey, baby," she said, and her voice was breathy, excited. "Just wanted to let you know I'll be really late. Kim's having a crisis with her mom, and we're going back to Rachel's house to talk it through. You know how it is." "Sure," I said. "I know exactly how it is. You sound tired. Go to bed, okay? I'll try not to wake you when I get home." "Don't worry about it. I'm a heavy sleeper." Another lie to add to the collection. I hadn't slept well in months, not since Hannah started her late-night phone calls and mysterious errands. But she didn't need to know that. "Love you," she said, and the words sounded hollow as an echo in an empty room. "Love you too." I hung up and poured another bourbon. Then I opened my laptop and did what any suspicious husband in the digital age would do. I started investigating. Hannah's Facebook page was a masterpiece of deception. Photos from girls' nights that looked staged, check-ins at places I'd never heard her mention, comments from friends I didn't recognize, all carefully crafted to support whatever story she was telling. But social media leaves digital footprints, and I'd always been good at following trails. A tagged photo here, a location check-in there, and pretty soon I had a timeline that made me freeze. 6 months ago, Tyler Morrison moves back to town, starts liking Hannah's posts. 5 months ago, Hannah starts going to a new gym across town. The same gym where Tyler has a membership, according to his LinkedIn profile. 4 months ago, Hannah's first girls' night at a restaurant where Tyler checked in the same evening. 3 months ago, Hannah starts working late on projects that never seem to materialize into actual income. 2 months ago, credit card charges for lingerie I'd never seen, perfume I didn't recognize, dinners for two at restaurants where she'd supposedly been alone. 1 month ago, Hannah stops initiating closeness, starts finding excuses to avoid physical contact, begins taking her phone everywhere, including the bathroom. The pattern was clear as smoke signals. My wife had been planning this affair like a military campaign, and I'd been too stupid or too trusting to see it coming. I closed the laptop and finished my bourbon. Then I picked up the ring box, walked outside to the fire pit in our backyard, and seriously considered throwing $1,500 worth of diamond and gold into the flames. But that would have been wasteful, and I had a feeling I was going to need every asset I could get my hands on for what was coming next. Hannah came home at 2:15 in the morning, moving through the house like a ghost, trying not to wake the husband she thought was sleeping peacefully upstairs. I heard the shower run for 20 minutes, washing off the scent of another man, probably. When she finally slipped into bed beside me, she smelled like hotel soap and guilt. "How was your night?" I asked quietly. She jumped like I'd fired a gun. "I thought you were asleep." "Just dozed off. How's Kim's mom?" "Better, much better. It was just a false alarm. You know how older people get about their health." Another lie. Kim's mom was probably fast asleep in Miami Beach, completely unaware she was being used as cover for her daughter's friend's adultery. "That's good," I said. "I'm glad everything worked out." Hannah curled up on her side of the bed, as far from me as possible without falling onto the floor. "Good night, Michael." "Good night, Hannah." But I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to my wife's breathing gradually slow and deepen, and I planned my revenge. Because that's what this was going to be, not a confrontation or a heart-to-heart conversation or couples therapy. Hannah had made her choice when she decided to sneak around behind my back instead of talking to me about whatever was wrong with our marriage. She'd chosen deception over honesty, Tyler Morrison over me, and lies over the truth. Now, I was going to make some choices of my own. The next morning, Hannah was up early, humming in the kitchen while she made coffee. She'd put on makeup before coming downstairs, which she never did on Saturdays. Her phone was buzzing constantly with text messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in months. "Big plans today?" I asked, buttering toast with deliberate casualness. "Just errands, grocery store, dry cleaner, you know, boring stuff." "Want company? I don't have to be at the station until tonight." The panic in her eyes was brief but unmistakable. "No. No thanks. I know you hate running errands. Besides, don't you have that project in the garage you've been putting off?" She was right. I did have a project in the garage, but it wasn't the workbench I'd been meaning to build. It was figuring out how to destroy Tyler Morrison's life without breaking any laws. "You're right," I said. "I should probably get that finished." Hannah kissed my cheek, a quick, guilty peck that felt like a betrayal all by itself. "See you tonight. Love you." "Love you too." But the words felt like ashes in my mouth. After Hannah left, I called Eddie. Mike, it's your day off. Please tell me you're not volunteering for overtime. I need a favor, and I need you to not ask questions. Silence on the other end. Then, what kind of favor? The kind that involves following someone without them knowing about it. Jesus, Mike, please tell me you're not turning into one of those psycho husbands who stalks his wife. I'm not stalking anyone. I'm gathering information. About what? I took a deep breath. Hannah's having an affair. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Eddie? I'm here. I'm just... Shit, Mike. Are you sure? I'm sure. With who? Tyler Morrison. The tech guy with the BMW? That pretentious asshole? That's the one. Another pause. What do you need me to do? Help me follow them today. I need to know where they go, what they do, how long this has been going on. Mike, maybe you should talk to a lawyer instead of playing private detective. I will. But first, I need evidence. Real evidence. Not just suspicions and credit card bills. Eddie sighed, the sound of a man who'd seen enough of life to know when his friend was past the point of reasonable advice. Pick me up in 20 minutes. And Mike, this is a really bad idea. Probably, but I'm doing it anyway. Because sometimes, when your whole world is burning down around you, the only thing left to do is grab a camera and document the flames. Eddie was waiting on his front porch when I pulled up, dressed in civilian clothes and wearing the grim expression of a man heading to a funeral. He climbed into the passenger seat and handed me a thermos of coffee without saying a word. Thanks, I said. Don't thank me yet. I still think this is stupid. Noted. We drove toward downtown in silence, two middle-aged men on a surveillance mission that felt both ridiculous and necessary. I'd borrowed my neighbor's gray sedan for the day, figuring Hannah might recognize my truck. Eddie had brought binoculars and a camera with a telephoto lens, like we were planning to document wildlife instead of adultery. There, Eddie said, pointing across the street from the coffee shop where we'd parked. BMW's in the lot behind the bookstore. Hannah's Honda was parked 3 spaces away. They weren't even trying to be subtle. How long do we wait? Eddie asked. However long it takes. We waited 45 minutes, long enough to finish the coffee and start questioning the wisdom of this entire enterprise. Then Hannah and Tyler emerged from the bookstore, walking close together but not quite touching. They looked like any other couple browsing downtown on a Saturday morning, except one of them was married to me. Tyler Morrison looked exactly like what he was, a successful, self-satisfied tech consultant who'd never done a day of real work in his life. Expensive haircut, designer jeans, and a watch that probably cost more than my truck. He was handsome in the way that men who spend too much time at the gym and too much money on their appearance tend to be. Shallow handsome, catalog handsome. Hannah laughed at something he said, throwing her head back in genuine delight. She looked younger somehow, more alive than she had in months. It should have made me happy to see her happy. Instead, it felt like watching a stranger wear my wife's face. Where are they going? Eddie asked, adjusting the camera lens. Looks like the park. We followed at a distance, staying far enough back to avoid detection while keeping them in sight. Tyler had his hand on Hannah's lower back now, a possessive gesture that made my teeth clench. They walked toward the duck pond where Hannah and I had gotten engaged 7 years ago. The irony was getting ridiculous. They sat on a bench overlooking the water, and Tyler pulled Hannah close against his side. She fit there naturally, like they'd done this 100 times before. Like she belonged there instead of next to me on our couch, watching Netflix and arguing about what to order for dinner. Eddie was taking pictures with the methodical precision of a crime scene photographer. This is enough, Mike. You've got what you need. But I couldn't look away. I was watching my marriage dissolve in real time, and some masochistic part of me needed to see every moment of it. Tyler kissed Hannah, and she kissed him back with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown me in months. Her hand tangled in his perfectly styled hair. His hand slid up her thigh. They looked like teenagers, all heat and desperate need and complete disregard for anyone who might be watching. That's enough, Eddie said firmly, lowering the camera. We're leaving. He was right. I'd seen enough to confirm what I already knew, and staying longer would only torture myself with details I didn't need. But as we walked back to the car, I couldn't shake the image of Hannah's face when Tyler kissed her. She looked transported, transformed, like she was exactly where she wanted to be. When had she stopped looking at me that way? When had I become the obligation instead of the desire? You okay? Eddie asked as we drove home. No, but I will be. What's your next move? Good question. I could confront Hannah directly, but that would only lead to denials and gaslighting, and probably a carefully orchestrated reconciliation that would last exactly as long as it took her to figure out how to be more careful. I could hire a private investigator, but I already had enough evidence to convince any divorce lawyer in the state. Or I could do something else entirely. I'm going to destroy him, I said. Eddie looked at me sharply. What does that mean? It means Tyler Morrison thinks he can steal my wife without consequences. I'm going to show him how wrong he is. Mike, whatever you're thinking, nothing illegal, nothing violent. But I'm going to make him regret the day he decided to mess with my life. Eddie was quiet for a long moment. Then, what do you need me to do? Help me research Tyler Morrison. I want to know everything about him. Where he works, where he lives, what he drives, who he owes money to, what skeletons he's hiding in his closet. Everything. And then? Then I'm going to use that information to make his life very, very complicated. We spent the rest of the afternoon in Eddie's basement using his computer and my phone to build a comprehensive profile of Tyler Morrison. Social media made it almost too easy. The man documented his entire life online like he was running for office. Tyler Morrison, age 41. Graduated from state with a business degree and mediocre grades. Worked for 3 different tech companies in California before moving back east. Currently running a consulting firm that seemed to specialize in helping small businesses implement digital solutions they didn't need. He lived in a luxury apartment complex on the north side of town. Drove a leased BMW that he probably couldn't afford. Had a habit of posting gym selfies and inspirational quotes about success and determination. No wife, no kids, no apparent responsibilities beyond his own pleasure. In other words, he was everything I wasn't. Unattached, self-centered, and free to pursue other men's wives without worrying about collateral damage. Look at this, Eddie said, pointing to Tyler's LinkedIn profile. He's been in town 6 months, and he's already claiming to have revolutionized 3 local businesses. Either he's a genius, or he's full of shit. What do you think? I think he's full of shit. Look at these testimonials. They're all generic corporate speak. Tyler helped us streamline our processes and maximize our potential. Who talks like that? I scrolled through Tyler's client list, recognizing several local business names. Maybe we should ask some of these people what they really think about Tyler's work. Unofficially, of course. Of course. By evening, we had enough information to write Tyler Morrison's unauthorized biography. More importantly, we had the beginning of a plan. I went home to find Hannah cooking dinner and humming the same song she'd been humming all week. She'd changed clothes since her date with Tyler, but I could still smell his cologne on her hair when she kissed my cheek. How was your day? She asked, stirring something that smelled like garlic and lies. Productive. Got that garage project started. That's great, honey. I'm proud of you for finally tackling it. Proud of me? Right. The woman who was cheating on me with a tech consultant was proud of me for organizing tools in my garage. How were your errands? I asked. Fine. Boring. You know how it is. I knew exactly how it was. But Hannah didn't know that I knew, which gave me a significant tactical advantage. We ate dinner while making small talk about work and weather and the neighbor's new fence. Hannah checked her phone constantly, smiling at messages she didn't share. I pretended not to notice while mentally rehearsing the conversation I was going to have with Tyler Morrison's biggest client at first thing Monday morning. I have to work late again tomorrow, Hannah said as we cleared the dishes. Big project timeline coming up. On Sunday? You know how clients are. They want everything yesterday. Another lie. Hannah's design business barely had enough clients to keep her busy 3 days a week, and none of them were demanding enough to require Sunday night emergency sessions. That's too bad, I said. I was hoping we could spend some time together. The guilt that flashed across her face was almost satisfying. Almost. Maybe next weekend, she said. Things should calm down after I finish this project. Sure they would. Right after she finished her project with Tyler Morrison's tongue down her throat. I understand, I said. Work comes first. But work wasn't coming first. Tyler Morrison was coming first, and I was coming last, and my marriage was coming to an end whether Hannah wanted to admit it or not. That night, after Hannah fell asleep, I took the diamond ring from my sock drawer and held it up to the moonlight streaming through our bedroom window. It caught the light and threw tiny rainbows across the ceiling, beautiful and expensive and completely worthless now. $1,500, 2 months of overtime. A symbol of love and commitment that would never be given, never be worn, never mean anything to anyone. But maybe it could serve a different purpose. Maybe it could be evidence. Proof of what Hannah had thrown away when she decided Tyler Morrison was more important than the man who'd loved her for 17 years. I put the ring back in its box and started planning phase 2 of my revenge. Because Tyler Morrison had no idea what he'd started when he decided to steal another man's wife. But he was about to find out. Monday morning came with the kind of cold rain that makes everything look gray and miserable. Perfect weather for destroying someone's life, I thought as I drove to Morrison Consulting's biggest client. Hartwell Manufacturing had been in business for 30 years, making custom metal parts for construction companies throughout the region. The owner, Jim Hartwell, was a straight-talking guy in his 60s who'd built his company on handshake deals and old-school customer service. According to Tyler's LinkedIn profile, he was revolutionizing their business model. According to my research, he was probably making their lives hell. "Michael Turner," I said, shaking Jim's hand in his cluttered office. "Riverside Fire Department. I'm here about the safety inspection for your new warehouse." It was a legitimate visit. Hartwell Manufacturing had expanded recently, and the fire department needed to approve their sprinkler system before they could get final occupancy permits. But it was also an opportunity to ask some casual questions about their business consultant. "Appreciate you coming out," Jim said, pouring coffee from a pot that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. "Though I have to say, this whole expansion has been more trouble than it's worth." "How so?" Jim gestured toward a stack of papers on his desk. "Hired this consultant to help us modernize our systems. Guy promised to streamline everything, make us more efficient. Instead, he's got us using 3 different software programs that don't talk to each other, and my employees spend half their time entering data instead of making parts. That sounds frustrating." Frustrating doesn't begin to cover it. "Morrison, that's the consultant, keeps telling us we need to trust the process, that things will get better once everyone adapts to the new systems. But my best machinist just quit because he couldn't figure out how to log his hours, and I've got customers calling because their orders are getting lost in the digital shuffle." I made sympathetic noises while inspecting the sprinkler system, but internally I was celebrating. Tyler Morrison wasn't just stealing my wife, he was also incompetent at his day job. "You thinking about firing him?" I asked casually. "Can't. Signed a 6-month contract, and he's got penalty clauses that would cost me more than just letting him finish. But you can bet I won't be giving him any testimonials when this is over." Interesting. Very interesting. I finished the inspection and headed to my next stop, Riverside Realty, where Tyler was supposedly helping them implement a new customer management system. The conversation with the office manager, Susan Walsh, was even more enlightening. "Don't get me wrong, Tyler seems like a nice enough guy," Susan said, showing me around their office. "But this new system he installed is a nightmare. Takes twice as long to enter a listing, and half the time it crashes when we try to print contracts." "Have you mentioned this to him?" "Multiple times. He keeps saying it's user error, that we need more training, but I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know user error when I see it, and this isn't it." By the end of the day, I'd visited 4 of Tyler's clients. The pattern was consistent: big promises, poor delivery, and customers who were too polite or too contractually obligated to complain publicly. Tyler Morrison was a smooth-talking salesman who'd convinced local businesses to pay premium prices for substandard solutions. He was also sleeping with my wife, which made his professional incompetence feel like a personal insult. That evening, I called Eddie with an update. "So he's a fraud," Eddie said. "What's the plan?" "I'm going to help his clients understand exactly what they're paying for." "Meaning?" "Meaning Tyler Morrison's reputation is about to become as worthless as his software solutions." "How?" "Leave that to me." Hannah came home at midnight, claiming she'd been working late on a logo design for a restaurant that didn't exist. She smelled like Tyler's cologne and wine, and when she kissed me goodnight, I could taste lies on her lips. "How was your day?" she asked, changing into pajamas that were new and expensive and clearly not intended for my benefit. "Busy, lots of inspections." "That's nice, honey?" "Nice. My day was nice. My wife was cheating on me with an incompetent consultant, and she thought my day was nice." "Hannah," I said as she climbed into bed. "Yeah?" "Do you love me?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that hadn't been properly extinguished. Hannah went very still, and I could practically hear her calculating the safest response. "Of course I love you," she said finally. "Why would you ask that?" "Just wondering. Sometimes I feel like we're drifting apart. All couples go through rough patches. We'll be fine." "We'll be fine. Sure we will." Right after she finishes destroying our marriage with Tyler Morrison. "I hope so," I said, but hope was the wrong word. I wasn't hoping for anything anymore. I was planning. The next morning, I started making phone calls. "Jim, it's Michael Turner from the fire department. Listen, I was thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I might have a solution to your consultant problem." "I'm listening." "What if I told you there was a way to document all the problems you're having with Morrison Systems? Build a case that his work isn't meeting the standards specified in your contract? I'd say you have my attention. And what if I told you I know other business owners who are having similar problems with the same consultant? Silence. Then, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that Tyler Morrison might not be as competent as he claims to be, and I'm suggesting that his clients might benefit from comparing notes. That's interesting. I thought you might think so. Can I give Susan Walsh your number? I think you two should talk. By the end of the week, I'd connected 4 of Tyler's clients with each other. They'd started comparing experiences, sharing documentation, and building a case that Tyler Morrison was systematically defrauding local businesses with promises he couldn't keep. None of it was illegal. I hadn't lied about Tyler's work or fabricated evidence against him. I'd simply helped his clients communicate with each other about their shared experiences. But the result was going to be devastating for Tyler's business. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it's bad word about someone who's been overselling his abilities. Hannah, meanwhile, continued her elaborate deception, late nights, mysterious phone calls, and increasingly creative lies about where she'd been and who she'd been with. She was getting sloppy, probably because she was getting comfortable, probably because she thought I was too stupid or too trusting to figure out what was happening right under my nose. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Friday night, Hannah announced she was going to a design conference in Albany for the weekend, a conference that didn't exist, hosted by an organization that wasn't real, to discuss trends that she'd made up on the spot. That sounds educational, I said, not looking up from my newspaper. It should be. Lots of networking opportunities. I'll bet there are, I thought, especially if Tyler Morrison is planning to network his way into a hotel room with my wife. Drive safely, I said. I will. Love you. Love you too. But we both knew the words were just noise now, meaningless sounds we made to maintain the pretense that our marriage still existed. After Hannah left, I called Eddie. Phase 2? He asked. Phase 2. Because Tyler Morrison was about to discover that stealing another man's wife comes with consequences, and Hannah was about to learn that lying to a man who'd spent 24 years investigating fires was a very bad idea. The weekend was just the beginning. Saturday morning, I drove to Tyler's apartment complex with a manila envelope full of documentation and a smile that probably looked more predatory than friendly. The Riverside luxury apartments were the kind of place that charged premium rent for granite countertops and a gym nobody used. Tyler's BMW was in its assigned spot, which meant he was home, probably sleeping off whatever romantic evening he'd shared with my wife at their fake conference in Albany. I didn't knock on his door. That would come later, when I had more ammunition. Instead, I went to the leasing office and had a conversation with the manager about fire safety regulations and the importance of proper documentation for insurance purposes. We take safety very seriously, the manager assured me, a nervous woman in her 30s who clearly didn't want any trouble with the fire department. I'm sure you do. But I notice you have several residents who list their apartments as business addresses. That can create liability issues if they're not properly licensed for commercial use. Tyler Morrison, according to public records, used his apartment as the official address for Morrison Consulting. He was probably violating his lease agreement and definitely creating tax complications that would be interesting to explore. I'll need to review our tenant agreements, the manager said, making notes with the frantic energy of someone whose weekend had just been ruined. That would be wise. I'd hate for there to be any problems during your next insurance inspection. From there, I drove to the office building where Tyler rented space for client meetings. Another conversation about fire codes, another nervous manager, another set of regulations that Tyler might or might not be following properly. The beauty of bureaucracy is that it's everywhere, and it's complicated, and most people don't understand it well enough to navigate it without help. Tyler Morrison was about to get a very expensive education in regulatory compliance. My phone rang as I was leaving the office building. Eddie calling with an update on his own weekend activities. I've been talking to people, he said without preamble. What kind of people? The kind who know things about Tyler Morrison that he probably doesn't want spread around. Such as? Such as the fact that he left California because of some unpleasantness with a client's wife, and the fact that his consulting business is leveraged up to its eyeballs, and the fact that he's been telling people around town that he's planning to marry a local woman as soon as her divorce is finalized. The last piece of information hit me like a physical blow. Hannah was planning to divorce me. She'd been planning it for months, probably, setting up her new life with Tyler while pretending everything was fine at home. You okay? Eddie asked. I'm perfect. What else did you find out? Tyler's been borrowing money from some questionable sources to keep his business afloat. Nothing illegal, necessarily, but the kind of people who don't like it when payments are late. Interesting. Mike, what are you planning? I'm planning to give Tyler Morrison exactly what he deserves. That evening, I had dinner alone and watched a movie I'd seen a dozen times before. Hannah called around 9 to tell me about the fascinating seminars she was attending and the valuable connections she was making. The keynote speaker was amazing, she gushed, and I could hear Tyler laughing in the background. Really opened my eyes to new possibilities. I'm sure he did. I might be late getting home tomorrow. There's a networking event that could lead to some big opportunities. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. But Hannah was going somewhere. She was going straight out of my life and into Tyler Morrison's arms, and she thought I was too stupid to realize it. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Sunday morning, I drove to the lake house where Hannah and Tyler had been meeting for their romantic getaways. It wasn't hard to find. Tyler had posted Instagram photos from the dock, complete with location tags and timestamps that corresponded perfectly with Hannah's mysterious absences. The house belonged to Tyler's cousin, according to property records. A weekend retreat that Tyler had been using as his private love nest, probably without his cousin's knowledge or permission. I didn't break in or trespass or do anything that would get me arrested. I just took pictures of Tyler's BMW in the driveway and Hannah's Honda parked beside it. Documentation for the divorce lawyer I was planning to hire first thing Monday morning. Then I drove home and waited. Hannah returned Sunday evening with a glow that had nothing to do with professional development and everything to do with a weekend spent in bed with another man. She was humming again, that same annoying tune that had become the soundtrack to her betrayal. "How was the conference?" I asked. "Incredible. Really life-changing. I learned so much about new directions I could take my business." New directions, right? Like the direction that led straight to Tyler Morrison's bedroom. "That's wonderful, honey. I'm happy for you." And I was happy, in a way. Happy that the pretense was almost over. Happy that I wouldn't have to listen to her lies much longer. Happy that Tyler Morrison was about to discover what happens when you mess with the wrong man's life. Monday morning came with sunshine and the promise of justice. I called in sick to work, which I never did, and spent the day making the phone calls that would end Hannah's affair and Tyler's career simultaneously. First call, divorce lawyer. Margaret Patel had a reputation for being thorough, aggressive, and expensive. Perfect for my needs. "I want to file for divorce on grounds of adultery," I told her during our consultation, "and I have documentation." Margaret reviewed my photos and financial records with the dispassionate efficiency of a surgeon examining a tumor. "This is solid evidence," she said. "Your wife won't be able to claim irreconcilable differences or ask for alimony. When do you want to serve the papers?" "As soon as possible. I can have them ready by Wednesday." Second call, Tyler's biggest client, Jim Hartwell. "Jim, it's Michael Turner. I have some information about Tyler Morrison that you're going to want to hear." "I'm listening." "It turns out Tyler's been using client meetings as cover for an extramarital affair. He's been billing you for hours he spent in hotel rooms with someone else's wife." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Can you prove that?" Jim asked finally. "I can prove he was at a lake house all weekend while claiming to be at a business conference. I can prove he's been lying about his whereabouts during billable hours. And I can prove he's been using your company's reputation to legitimize a consulting business that's built on fraud. Send me everything you have." Third call, Tyler's landlord, his creditors, and the state licensing board that regulated business consultants. By the end of the day, Tyler Morrison's carefully constructed life was starting to collapse. His clients were demanding refunds, his landlord was questioning his lease violations, and his creditors were asking uncomfortable questions about his ability to repay his loans. But the best part was still to come. Tuesday evening, I was waiting in my living room when Hannah came home from another late meeting that had actually been a romantic dinner with Tyler. She looked guilty and satisfied and completely unaware that her world was about to implode. "How was work?" I asked. "Busy. Really busy. This new project is taking up all my time." "I imagine it is." Something in my tone made her look at me more carefully. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Hannah. In fact, everything's about to be perfect." "What does that mean?" I pulled out the divorce papers Margaret had delivered that afternoon and set them on the coffee table between us. "It means I know about Tyler Morrison. I know about the lake house and the fake conferences and the lies you've been telling me for months. And I know you've been planning to leave me for him." Hannah went white as a sheet. "Michael, I can explain." "No need. It's all explained right there in those papers. Adultery, abandonment, and fraud. You're going to sign them, and you're going to move out, and you're going to discover that actions have consequences." "You can't do this." "I already did. Tyler's business is finished, by the way. Turns out his clients don't appreciate paying for services they didn't receive, and his creditors are very interested in his recent financial irregularities. Hannah was crying now, ugly tears that smeared her makeup and made her look older than her years. Please, Michael, it's not what you think. Tyler and I, we never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now you get to live with the results. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, but I hear Tyler's looking for a new place to live too, so maybe you can figure it out together. Hannah tried to argue, to explain, to negotiate some kind of settlement that would let her keep her dignity and her financial security. But it was too late for negotiations. She'd made her choice when she decided to betray our marriage, and now she had to live with the consequences. Wednesday morning, Hannah moved out. Tyler helped her pack, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in the past week. His business was in ruins, his reputation was destroyed, and his creditors were circling like vultures. "I hope you're happy," he said as they loaded the last box into Hannah's car. "I'm getting there," I replied. And I was. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The lies were over, the pretense was finished, and the future, whatever it held, was going to be honest. Hannah and Tyler drove away together, two people who'd destroyed their lives for a few months of stolen passion. They deserved each other. As for me, I had a house to myself, a career I loved, and a diamond ring I'd never given to a woman who didn't deserve it. It wasn't the ending I'd planned, but it was the ending I'd earned. And sometimes that's enough.